Call to order the meeting of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board of Managers for September 22nd, 2016. All managers are present. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the board in a matter that's not on the agenda? I see no one. On the agenda, we're going to add a couple of updates from Ms. Schaufler when she's up for 11.1 concerning the water level and dam operations, and also a weather station issue. But other than that, is there any change to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve?
Approve.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Under information items and correspondence, is there an item in there for the mod resolutions? I forget what our packet contains.
4.1.
Yeah, is that in there? Okay. So I'll come back to this when I talk about the President's report. But also, there was correspondence this week from the Board of Water and Soil Resources, a memo and application form, which I'll hand over to Administrator Erdahl, asking for nominations for Outstanding Watershed District Employee Award with a deadline of November 1 to submit names to Bowser. I would be interested in knowing what the history of this is. If we've made submissions before, perhaps I could ask you to look that up going forward. Ms.
James
Whisker?
got it.
You got it?
Yeah, they give it out at the December mod.
I remember seeing it being given, yeah. But would you hand that down to Mr. Erdahl? Thank you. I missed a joke.
James got the award 1 year.
That's not a joke. No, that's not a joke. So September, the consent agenda has approval of the September 8th, 2016 board minutes, approval of the general check register, surety, general checking account, surety account, and 325 Blake Road checking account. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I would note there's one word change in the minutes. When it's discussing the zero muscle study, it says the work will start, the treatment will start August, and 18th is really September 18th. But with that minor change, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Before we go further, I wonder if Ms. Mamayak and Mr. Idem would like to come forward.
You know, I'd like to just make a comment before
Certainly.
Ms. Mamayak comes up. She's done such a good job of warning everybody about the floods.
Mm-hmm.
My wife actually asked me to get sandbags last night.
Before or after the rain?
Yeah. She thought there was going to be that kind of water
gosh.
rushing down the street and everything.
I'm glad she was wrong. Go ahead.
It's good to be prepared.
In Maple Grove.
President White Managers, I'm here today with Brett Idem, our cost share grant administrator, who has done such an amazing job the last couple of years in the position, and he's been just a delight to work with, and he is unfortunately going to be leaving us for another position with the MWMO, and his last day is coming up on September 30th. And so we're getting the most work that we can out of him in the remaining days as we work on a transition plan, but we certainly are going to miss him. He's been just a great addition to the team. And so we wish him well.
Thank you. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, thanks. I have accepted the position as a water resource planner with Mississippi Water Management Organization, and since coming to the district 4 years ago as a district rep, that was kind of a goal of mine with my background in landscape architecture to one day be a water resources planner. So where I am currently with the program, under the current program framework, I just felt that this was a better opportunity for me to pursue that career at this point in time. And so I just want to say it was a very difficult decision, as this is the most family type of environment of the staff I've ever worked with, and it has been all positive through all of my time here. And I just want to thank both the Board of Managers and the staff as far as hearing my ideas as I've developed the program over the last couple of years. And through the strategic planning process, we have identified a future framework and vision for the program to be even more effective for the organization, and I'm excited that that framework is at least loosely in place as I leave here, and feel that the program will be in good hands and will continue to improve over time. Thank you for everything over the last 4 years.
Thank you. I'm going to
Thank
take
you.
Chair's prerogative and speak first and say that you have, your mark will be felt for a long time. You've been a very positive influence here, and I remember that your very first time you appeared at the board, you were still in a real entry-level position. You'd barely been here, and you were outlining some of the ideas for stormwater BMPs that we might employ on this property when we're still over in the old building.
Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure to have you work here, and wonderful to see you develop. I think you got married and had a child during the time you were working here. So
Right.
on a personal level also, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if I might make a few notes about the transition period in the program, in light of the strategic review that's underway, staff has determined that we will shepherd through the cost share applications through the rest of the year with internal staff working with our consultants. And then we'll assess the posting process at the beginning of the year after this year's strategic review. At least the first phase is complete in December.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I think you kind of exemplify the enthusiasm and the creativity that we have in the staff, and really appreciate your efforts and contributions.
Yes.
We get to keep your Channel 2 television presentations on for.
That's true.
Absolutely. That is
All I was worried about is those are really well done.
It's never fun to see staff leave, but I hope that, you are sort of a friend of the watershed district wherever you go, because you've been such a good part of us after.
Absolutely.
We send our good wishes to you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I attended a meeting since the previous board meeting with the City of Wayzata staff and consultant, along with Ms. Clark and Mr. Erdahl. I'm going to leave that for Mr. Erdahl to summarize. And then the MOD resolution, just a reminder that the deadline for getting resolutions into them is October 14th, and we've been meeting on the 13th. So if staff or board have ideas that they'd like to send forward to be considered, they should be, I would say, let's get them to Mr. Erdahl by next Thursday or something like that. Does that sound reasonable? And then I had asked that they get the list of past resolutions, which is in the board packet as an idea of things that we have asked for in the past. And I think their policy is to continue forward resolutions that are still make sense, even if they don't get introduced anew each year. So this is just an indicator of those in the past. Manager Miller, the Planning and Policy Committee report.
The minutes are very complete for the previous meeting of last month, and I think they'll be equally as comprehensive for today. So we'll just leave that report next month.
Okay, and then just a reminder that there's the posted packet. Anything that's handed out gets shared with managers and becomes part of the official packet. Then there's that elaborate, some very thorough, not elaborate's the wrong word, but very thorough report we get back in the form of minutes. And then also, of course, any questions will be directed to staff. Manager Blaise.
So in my Dropbox, there was nothing for the meeting of this time around.
There should have been a memo and an agenda. It was on the website.
It wasn't. It's empty.
It's empty.
I read them from the web.
The Dropbox didn't have any documents.
I haven't been using Dropbox. I don't know about that.
I've actually found some inconsistency between the web and the Dropbox.
Okay. So
And I have two different Dropboxes, so I don't know if it's. I have an old one that I don't think staff uses anymore, but the new one is
There's supposed to be, I think, a one shared Dropbox. You can probably drop the old Dropbox, probably.
I tried. I tried, it told me I was not allowed to.
Well, this is pretty
So
serious.
if you can follow through
Yeah.
I
with
mean,
that?
bring it up.
I mean, I'm saying,
Yeah.
folder is empty, I ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even aware, I will just say, I didn't even know there was a meeting because it wasn't it wasn't on this agenda and so I didn't even know.
Well, it's been on every agenda that for the past, we go a month or 6 weeks ahead of time, usually 3 to 6 weeks. So it's been on the agendas right along.
All the
And
meetings
on
have been
website.
officially posted.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't get the,
Yeah,
Materials up there.
I'll follow up on that to make
That's-
sure
that's
there's consistency in both on the website and on the Dropbox.
Okay,
Huh.
thank you. So you'll notice that the next one will be on October 13th, the next planning policy committee. It's on the agenda we're looking at tonight. Manager Becker, you attended CAC?
Yes, I attended on a week ago Wednesday. There was a full house, full attendance of members. They discussed or heard from staff on water levels and winter maintenance seminars, among other things. We also presented the semi-annual report. CAC members were very interested in the Mooney Lake violation, which was brought to the attention by the vice chair, I believe. And there's quite a bit of discussion on that and concern about what was going on. We heard a Watershed Association Initiative Program update by the Freshwater Society, and the CAC was pleased to understand that we were supporting that with part of the salary of the lead staff, and thought the work was good and took the presentation well. And then there was an extensive discussion on a cost share project that had been scored by the grants group. It was shoreline restoration on Lake Minnetonka. And the group eventually recommended the 50% funding that the staff had recommended. There was some concern about one particular piece of planting stock, which was a star magnolia that had a price tag of about 5% of the project. And after extended discussion, they agreed to fund it. It may be something that the Board of Managers wants to weigh in on eventually, depending on what the staff recommends. There were two things that struck me. One was the expense, but the other thing was it was a non-native, and whether we want to continue to plant non-natives is a question I would bring up if we discuss that at some time in the future. They completed the meeting at about 9 o'clock after a rousing discussion.
That's why it's so expensive.
That's good.
I don't know anything about the Mooney Lake violation. Has anybody, can anybody enlighten us?
Mr. Whisker?
I can give you the broader background after James does, as you wish.
Okay, thank you.
Chair White, Manager Blix, managers, staff is actively working on addressing a non-compliance issue on the Mooney Lake development, which is over on the kind of the southwest corner of Mooney Lake. You'll probably recall permitting that, some of the public comment that we received. That's a permit that came in front of the board. Staff through routine inspections after the permit was issued in August, we're following up. No issues on site. Subsequent inspection beginning of September, early in September, revealed a lot of clearing and grubbing around the shoreline. There's the main development area, and in proximity to the lake, there's a large public water wetland, kind of a shallow marsh, and between that marsh and the lake, there's kind of an upland or shoreline fringe. And the developers' contractors had gone in through that area that was never planned for disturbance or vegetation removal and cleared and grubbed that area. So that was first identified through that inspection, subsequent follow-up complaints from the Mooney Lake Association, the chair of Mooney Lake, as well as other Mooney Lake members. And quickly, staff brought the city of Orono into the mix because this falls under some of their zoning code provisions for vegetation removal in the shoreline zone, as well as just tree removal. And so the first step that was taken was a notice of probable violation was issued, outlining sort of the history of the permit, the inspection history, and what was observed on site, and why it was a problem, and then called for a site meeting with the developer, their consultants, city staff, and watershed district staff. And so that site meeting occurred. Everybody discussed the relative roles and responsibilities and which regulations were in violation. There's been some follow-up on documentation that the developer has to provide in terms of a restoration plan, a survey of what was removed and that sort of thing, just an inventory. And the next step will be drafting a compliance order which dictates what level of restoration has to occur. And that once a compliance order is issued, there's an opportunity for a hearing in front of the Board of Managers to vet the compliance order that staff is issuing and just provide sort of due process for the applicant that's been found in violation. So that's the track that we're on right now.
Thank you. Mr. Becker?
This is the Dayton property,
Correct.
and it was property that was considered for an easement.
It was considered for conservation easement at one point in time, but then it was, due to conservation law issues and one thing and another, it was advancing the development.
It was the tax issue.
Yes.
That's another thing the board ought to consider, and maybe it's something that we should consider for a resolution. But it's almost a taking, if not a taking. Now, the legislature can do that, but a change in the law that allowed them not to get a tax reduction, a real estate tax reduction, which would have been money in their pocket, was the primary reason they didn't get the conservation easement and preserve the land.
Mr. Welch, did you want to provide some background?
Well, just that the managers may recall that this property and the development on the property was the subject of a suit about a year ago that the district was extricated from before it proceeded. And that suit, as far as I've followed it, is resolved altogether against the city of Orono was removed from the suit as well. So it remained only between the plaintiffs, which had sued under the environmental review statute in the state, and they received an injunction. They sought and received an injunction in November of last year to stop the development, and then dropped the suit about 5 weeks later, and withdrew their complaint. So at that point, all that was left was fighting over money, which is what took place. So that was the last I'd heard of it. The district has had some sort of administrative involvement in as much as they've sought some changes that the engineers reviewed to their declaration instruments, and related to one of the nearby property owners bought property close to his to provide sort of a buffer, but otherwise this is newer. Everything that's Mr. Whiskers discussed has come about since then.
Mr. Brooks?
To Mr. Bennett's point, I would be interested in if the staff could provide, at a future meeting, kind of a background information about the tax laws that he's referring to, and so that we could have consideration of potentially proposing this as a resolution for the MAUD discussions would seem appropriate to me. So if that's a way that we could proceed with his suggestion, that would be my recommendation.
I think the board would be happy to see some background on conservation as well. And specifically the change recently that made it less desirable.
Particularly in light of the fact that we have a significant amount of our own land in conservation easements and may potentially want to do further easements in the future. I think that would be helpful for us to have a better understanding of kind of the pluses and minuses of that type of arrangement and what we lost in this last change.
Okay, Mr. Whisker.
Question on that, just related to deadlines. You said you'd look for some feedback from staff on the recent change in how the tax law change and how that impacts potential conservation lands within the district to inform the mod resolution process. What's the deadline for submitting proposals through the mod?
October 14th.
Okay.
We can always submit them in December, but to get it into the committee's consideration, October 14th.
And I suppose staff is happy to proceed with that board direction, and we'll proceed on the assumption that if we're working with legal counsel and analysis, we'll keep the analysis below $5,000, which is our sort of staff discretion for spending and analysis.
Oh no, I insist we go above.
Just not sure, in terms of the scope of what you want, if
Yeah.
you wanted something bigger, we'd have to bring back a proposal, so.
Something brief, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which doesn't mean easy.
Where's Mooney?
Plymouth.
On the border of
Plymouth and Orno.
Plymouth, Orono, and
Medina.
The development in question is in Orno.
thank you.
Thank you. The upcoming meeting event schedule is posted in our agenda. We'll move down to item 11.1, Ms. Schaufler.
I emailed out the bid tabs, but if people
And is all this information public once we accept the bid, only that information about the person who's the company we accept?
all of the information once we accept.
Thank you.
Chair White managers, tonight, staff received authorization to award a construction contract for the Jennings Bay Wetland Restoration Floodplain Mitigation Project for Sundown Construction in the amount of $144,744 and establish a construction budget with a not to exceed amount of $159,518. As you see in your resolution, staff sought bids and we received 6 bids total. Sunram submitted the lowest responsive bid. Their bid came in about $12,000 less than the engineer's estimate. And one thing I do want to note is this is a joint project with the city of Minnetrista, so the city will be contributing about $25,000 to $30,000 towards that total bid cost as well for their project. And just an update on the total cost for the overall project, as this project was ordered for approximately
less than a week after the killing of Terrence Crutcher,
Jesus.
Tulsa officer.
The original Highway 101 project included the Shoreline project and then this Jennings Bay project, and that was about $1.6 million. Currently, since we've gotten now the construction contract for that Shoreline for this, we're spending about $350,000 less than what we originally ordered it, and that includes the $30,000 that will come from Henderson County for their contribution towards the Shoreline, and then also that $25,000 to $30,000 from the city of Minnetrista. So numbers are sitting good for that. Other than that, if there's any questions on the actual bid tabulation, I can take those. But staff is just seeking authorization to enter into that contract with Sunram Construction.
First a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
And second, Manager Olson.
Do we have a work experience with Sunram?
Manager Olson, managers, yes, Sunrun Construction has recently awarded quite a few projects. They just got the cattle crossing for Painter Creek. They also did the Long Lake Creek project last 2 years ago. And it was kind of the same team, same design team, Respec, Sunrun Construction on that project as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
And they also did a pond dredging project for us this last winter.
Are there other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to compliment Ms. Scheffler on the explanation of this project from the beginning, in keeping us informed of step by step by step. It makes the final decision very easy.
Thank you.
Yes, we sit here and don't ask a lot of questions because we've been brought right along. And even the two parts of the project. And now an update.
So first I'll touch on just what's happening with water levels. As Manager Miller pointed out, Telly's been doing a great job of getting the word out, and I think that's helped. Today we received a handful of calls, but I don't think it would have been, in past experience, as many as we've received. It helped that the National Weather Service was sharing our message. Paul Hutner shared it on his NPR weather blog, so it was just nice to get it out to kind of the masses. People anticipated and knew it was coming, so they weren't surprised or caught off guard. So I just want to provide a quick update on where we're at. We got fortunate last night. We were not Maple Grove. The watershed district as a whole received between 1 to 2 inches. Our 6-mile weather station showed about 1.1 inches. Our Painter Creek showed about I think it was like 1.4, and then the MSP airport was 1.8. So kind of fluctuated depending on where you're at, obviously. So today our lake level reading was at 929.48, which is an increase of 1.7 inches from Wednesday. We temporarily increased the dam discharge this morning to 250 CFS from 150. And that was because the forecast for this weekend wasn't looking so bad. But now with our 4:30 update, it's looking to be about another inch, if not more, Saturday night into Sunday. So we lowered it back at 4:30 this afternoon to 150. So that's the minimum, as you can see, that we're in that zone 3 that we can discharge to. We've heard from I touched base with the city of Edina today, and they said that we've been good at timing our lowerings really well. It's provided that extra capacity that residents need along the creek, and that they've had 7, I don't know if you were one of them, 7 requests for sandbags. But no structural damage. So we were talking, this year we're on track to be the wettest record, but so far this year we haven't had any actual major flooding. So we've been a good balance of lowering the discharge before getting some of the big rain events. This is just to show you what's been happening since the 1st of September with the lake level real time with that USGS gauge. So you can see the big jump last night. And Minnehaha Creek last night did peak around 461 CFS. That was about around 1 a.m. this morning. It has since dropped over 123 CFS to 338, and that was at 5 p.m. this afternoon. So we expect probably by morning that it'll hopefully the creek will be back in its banks in most places, and then get some relief again before that Saturday night into Sunday's rain. This was a graphic that the National Weather Service shared on their Facebook page, and this is just to show again that through yesterday now we are on track again for the wettest year on record. So we're sitting a little bit above where we were at this time in 1911. And if we didn't receive any more precipitation for the remainder of the year, we would still be 0.2 above the normal annual amount for the year. So we've gotten a lot of rain the last couple months.
Madam Chair,
Manager Becker.
has there been any documented change in the water cycle in Minnesota when we get rain by month?
And Rebecca, that's something I can certainly, look into, and the National some other source folks to provide us that and just see if we have more fluctuation. Because yeah, it seems, they keep saying recently it's like we're in a June kind of setting.
The traditional water year in Minnesota starts in the fall, and most of the precipitation in Minnesota falls is snow. And accumulates over the winter, and then it goes out with snow melt. Those of us who have lived here for our lives, or 30 years, 40 years, remember that summers used to be dry. And if that cycle is changing, it might or might not have some effect on what we do.
Well, as staff has pointed out, in 2014, the rain came early, and then last year and this year, the rain was spread out the whole time, and they're telling us this was the 6th wettest August on record. So, at least the last 2 years, that's a trend.
Yeah, but certainly, there's a lot of weather folks out there that like to grab those interesting facts. I can see what I can.
The Aquatennial is the weekend is the least likely to rain.
Previously.
Historically.
And here's the last piece. As at the workshop 2 weeks ago, I showed you that we get these specific precip forecasts for the Lake Minnetonka watershed area. So this just shows what we're expecting over the weekend. So you can see, so the 24th into the 25th is that overnight is when we're expected to get that 0.81 inches. So a total of almost an inch going into Sunday morning. So that's what we're trying to provide some capacity on the creek for.
Thank you.
And then just back to this original graphic, with Kelly's messaging, what we're trying to just say is the red is just a predicted Lake Minnetonka level. That's an ideal situation, getting normal precipitation. So just trying to tell people we're going to be in that zone 3 probably for the remainder of the season. So you're going to see the creek at capacity between that 150 at least minimum for the remainder of the year. So people can anticipate that.
Great work, thank you.
Yeah. So I told my boss about how we're operating this, and I told a friend of mine, and they both were just amazed at how, we've kind of adapted to recognizing there will be a surge of water flowing to the creek, and so we manipulate the dam and the creek levels to be able to anticipate water flows. And that might be something worth kind of pushing out to residents that live along the creek. Just as basic information of, okay, we're here, this is what we're charged to do, this is how we're trying to better your experience as a homeowner, and to protect your property. I mean, it's kind of an ingenious little tactic that's pretty intuitive if you know what you're doing. And
There's certain people who won't believe it anyhow.
I know. I mean, I've got a creek flowing through my basement right now. I'm blaming her.
I wanted to ask for clarification because the emails that have been going out in the splash and that's what's on the website talk about how they're carefully managing the water, but you want something different than that.
Yeah, I think I'm not unique in that I'm inundated by emails, and I don't know how we would directly communicate to people along the creek via email. But I think some sort of postcard. I mean, I know we attempted some sort of engagement via mail, and it had mixed results. But I do think that mail does help deliver a message more effectively than email.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily like indicating what the best tactic would be, but I think we should explore.
Start from you.
I mean, but like I don't know what it would be, but I think it's something worth touting. Just kind of how we're doing this.
Yeah, and I think that's Manager Miller brought up last week, having some sort of email distribution list. I think sending out a postcard to see if people are interested and we can just keep adding to it would be the best, avenue for getting that word out. Really, Edina is kind of the really only place where you have people really, really close to the creek, and those are the people that we hear from. So if we can get a hold of all those folks, I think that'd be a great way to communicate.
Mr. Welch.
Manager Shepleton mentioned that he gets inundated with email, and one of the reactions to that I think we've mentioned to the managers in the past is that we're, as a governmental entity, we're pretty restricted about, we can't just blast email to people. They have to ask for it, and not only, generally, they could ask for everything, but if they only ask for one thing, that's the only thing we can send them. So there's a certain amount.
Which is why
It's a little tough,
which is
but-
why I think mail is a better
It might be, or the idea that, it sounds to me like the interest is in describing that there is this management program in place, and that could be a article in the paper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I got these notices on my phone.
Yeah.
You know, both for the Amber Alert, a couple in the last month or so, and then the weather, flood warning. How does that work? I mean, who puts that out?
National Weather Service, I think, operates that system that alerts your phone. If you'll be in a meeting, everybody's cell phone will go off at the same time.
You're asking what authority they have to?
It's the emergency alert system.
It's also,
But you
it's
can
also
opt
a
out.
setting, exactly.
Well, you can
opt
opt
out of it.
Not all of them.
Read the contract with all 600 pages with your cell phone.
Some
All
of them.
those things.
That's one of the extra
Like
taxes we
Sept
pay
on
on the phone for getting that notice.
I'm just, Josh, and I don't know the answer to that question. You had another item for us.
Yes. So, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, the weather stations that the board allowed Hennepin County installed been very, very useful, especially this season with all the rain coming down. And Hennepin County approached us to ask if we'd be open to allowing to expand the current easement area that we have at the 6 Mile Creek site. Currently, we have, our easement allows for a 40 by 40 foot area, and that's what the weather station is installed inside. And what they'd like to do is to expand that to this 150 by 200 foot area. And what they'd like to do is install a space hazard monitor sensor. So I'm just going to try to tell you what I know about it. What they want to do is, this would monitor ground-induced currents and disturbances in the Earth's magnetic field that are produced by solar storms. It's funded by the National Science Foundation, and I'm essentially just trying to, they want to get a station installed. There currently aren't any sensors in the northern United States, so this would be the only one. And they'd like to be able to understand how geomagnetic transitions, our currents in our region are flowing, and this would provide about a 30-minute warning to any electric utilities, pipeline operations, telecommunications to take measures to protect their facilities. So what would be installed is be underground. There wouldn't be any further really disturbance. It's all the stuff is underground. The one thing that would be above ground would be the picture on the right. That would have to be close to the sensors, and then the picture on the left, the solar panel would actually be in the existing fenced area of the weather station. So those would be the impacts to the site. But we would still be able to have the right to terminate the easement as we do now, and we'd still be able to manage the vegetation on the site as we do now. So I just wanted to see if gauge kind of the board's feeling on it, and if there is support for it, then I could bring back an easement amendment at the October 13th meeting for this.
Thank you. Measure Shepherd.
Did you say this is the only one in the northern hemisphere?
This would be the only one in the northern central U.S.
So is it, I mean, would it be part of a network? Or?
Yep. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's the Science Foundation that tracks it all, or who's the overall.
Sure.
I could figure that out.
Manager Olson?
I'm a little bit confused. Who's asking for the easement? The county?
Yeah, so Hennepin County currently has the easement. They're just asking to expand.
I get that. And now who's going to do the work and who's going to?
They would do the work. They just get funding from the National Science Foundation to install it.
Okay, but it's the National Science Foundation's equipment and that kind of
Correct.
thing. Okay.
And the smaller easement is the weather service?
It's Hennepin County. They have a weather station that they manage as part of their, they call it their Hennepin West Mesonet system.
So it's the same holder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We would just amend the easement to expand
Expanded mission.
the area, pretty much.
Can you get them to predict the aurora borealis?
There's a guy.
Write that into the recital, I suppose.
There's a website for that.
Yeah, I get emails and
The
tweets.
electromagnetic data might be helpful too.
There's an app for that. No.
There is.
Mr. Welch, because this is an interesting property, the easement, do we need to have, are we able to have a vote to approve it in concept, or do we have to have it noticed on agenda?
Managers, this is an adjustment to an existing easement that it doesn't sound like it involves any financial layout by either party. So I think Tiffany is looking only for direction, and this is new to me, so but it sounds like not, that it could be drafted as a pretty simple amendment to the easement and brought forward to the managers as a regular agenda item. And I don't believe there'd be any additional process, but we'll work with staff certainly to, if they're.
I mean, we could just do a head nod kind of thing and say, yeah, we think it's a good idea.
And for now, I
To
hear
approve in
Tiffany just to
concept.
be looking for direction.
Yeah.
Should I even talk to Hennepin County about this, or the manager's amenable to it? And
Does any manager object to this proceeding forward?
Okay.
Gives you direction.
That's
Would
all
they be
I need.
looking for a chain link fence?
What'd you say?
Would they, isn't the existing easement like surrounded by a fence?
Yeah, the 40 by 40 foot already has an existing fence.
So they want to expand that then?
No, that would not be expanded, because everything will be underground, so it needs to be protected.
But they need to access that whole area
Yeah,
for the
so it's
underground.
just having the right to enter that.
And the district is retaining some uses there that I heard Tiffany say won't
Be
change,
preserved,
so.
yeah.
Does this put another box in the operations department's program?
No,
Okay.
that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Administrator's report, Administrator Erdahl.
I'd also like to thank Tiffany and also Laura Damjanovic on the staff that have worked a lot with the high water issues and the operation of the dam. In addition to being excellent at communicating internally and externally with this, they also assisted with a meeting with some concerned residents about a week ago, and Manager Becker joined us as well to talk about the targets for lowering the lake level before ice gets in, and that's kind of part of the art part of this, and the art and science coming together, because we're still trying to lower the lake level to 928.6 in order to have enough storage capacity for the winter and spring season. So, and we've done that consistently for several years, but that's kind of part of the challenge, is to maintain the capacity in the creek when there's these rain events, but also keep lowering the lake level too. So they've done a great job both doing that and communicating it. Also, as one thing that was mentioned in the PPC committee meeting just earlier this evening, is that we hosted a planners meeting earlier this week, Tuesday morning, and that was kind of a follow-up to the Nemo boat tour that was a similar format to explain to a group of planners from throughout the district. I think there were about 25 people in attendance. What we're trying to do with some of the initiatives we're doing and pursuing through the 6 Mile Creek Halstead projects, and also some of the other focal geographies, and the kind of both the responsive track and the focal geography tracks of our planning. And that was very well attended and well received by the participants. And actually we had people from staff on St. Louis Park and also the City of Victoria that presented about the process and the procedures that we've been going through. And I think one of the things that came out of staff following that is that it's great to have our partners in these communities speak about our process in a real positive manner on our behalf, rather than us doing it ourselves. It was very impactful, and it demonstrated to everybody there kind of the direction we're following. Also earlier this week, we met with Mayor Wilcox and the new city manager in Wayzata, Jeff Dahl, who's been there I think just about a month or so now, I believe. And also Mary and I. Delate. I'm not. I would have mispronounced that, I'm sure. But they want to update us on some of the things happening in Wayzata with the Lake Effect project. Since they were here, Mary DeLate and Mayor Wilcox presented to the managers sometime this past spring. about the project, and there have been some changes to the project since it's been scaled back a little bit after the council made some decisions on it. And they will continue to kind of refine the projects. They've launched a conservancy to raise private funds for a lot of the projects that's already doing some fundraising work. And one of the things I think, frankly, that they wanted to figure out is if the watershed district would be kind of among their sources of funds for some of the projects, and which ones that would have kind of the water quality or the natural resources benefits. So that's one of the things that Renee Clark participated in that meeting as well, and we're going to be working with them in terms of planning and making sure that that's something that gets considered as we go forward. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else. They were extremely complimentary of our work along Bushway Road, and which opened last week, so that's actually open now again. They were very thankful for our help in kind of guiding aspects of that project forward.
I would add just one more thing, which was that the next step, the most immediate outcome was that they're going to share their environmental assessment worksheet immediately with Ms. Clark, their details for that. So
Right, they're going through an environmental assessment process, which will end, I believe, it was at a next spring
sounds right,
time frame, but we wanted to kind of get into that process a little bit earlier so we can kind of see what things are happening from a planning perspective. And also, I spent a good portion of the day today at the Clean Water Summit that was hosted at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum. It was also well attended. I think there were about 215 people there. And they had a couple different speakers that this morning that gave some interesting talks. One was from the city of Philadelphia. Here's the name. He was with the city of Philadelphia. He was the CEO of Philadelphia Water, and they've done a lot of the water projects. They've invested, I think, $1.5 billion in the next, or committed $1.5 billion in the next 10 to 15 years to kind of improve the water. And their infrastructure is even older than ours in terms of being an older city. So they're dealing with a lot of issues with sewage emptying directly into their river system. So they have a lot of work to do. And then another person that presented was Dr. Traver from Villanova University that's done a lot of measurements of rain garden BMPs that they've done around the campus in different areas, and kind of some of the criteria that impact their success. And both were very well received by the group. And also in the afternoon session, Darren Lochner presented some information about partnerships, including our partnership with Cottageville Park. And we had a staff member from Hopkins was there to talk about our partnership there as well. And those are my updates, unless there's any other questions.
thank you. Magic List.
No, I don't have a question.
All right, the meeting
But
is adjourned.
I just, a topic, just to say that, I'm not sure if it's in today's or tomorrow's paper, but Steve Brandt did a extensive article about the restoration at Camp Coldwater. And if none of you have been there recently, I will say that you should go, because it's totally spectacular, the prairie and wetland restorations that have occurred there. It's just incredible, the work, and it's managed by the National Park Service, and it's the only land that's really managed as part of the MNRA. But it's really
What's mineral?
Minnesota National Recreation Area.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's a,
Mississippi.
yeah, it's a label, but nothing more.
Yeah. Well, except
Except there, okay.
I haven't been for a year or so that'd be really fun to go.
It's the prairie restoration is just incredible.
Flowers are incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And if we're gonna talk about MNRA, you guys know about the bike share, nice ride in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities. The kayak share kicked off today at noon, and so you can go from I think up by Coon Rapids Dam, North
Right.
Regional Park, all the way down into St. Paul, and it's like $30 for it's like $60 for a full day for a rental of a kayak.
The water's flowing pretty fast right
Yeah,
now.
I know.
I was gonna say, how people are careful.
I'd have to rent it for 2 days.
But you can check it out from a thing and then deposit it back in another one.
Great
And
idea.
they manage the balancing of the kayaks between the different stations.
Then they haul you back.
I was gonna say, the
You
shuttle.
must have paddle
I don't,
upstream.
The shuttle.
I haven't thought it through.
How do you
like-
get through the locks?
Well, there is a 1 mile portage.
Okay.
Oh,
get
great.
On, yeah, if you get off right up by, just upstream from the Hempen Avenue Bridge, you can portage your boat all the way down to below the lower falls.
You know,
I know.
that river right now is really high and
Yeah.
really dangerous. I can't believe that they would encourage, would you have to take a
Novices, yeah.
test to do that, or what?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because you could easily go over that falls.
There's,
Yeah.
I glanced at I glanced at their website today, and they do have parameters within which they will allow usage. And there was a max flow of water. And so I've got to believe they wouldn't. let people
Breathalyzer.
on.
So you're gonna kayak down and bike back.
Well, that's
You're gonna make
real.
the two programs work together.
I don't know how it's set up. I think it's set up to just do it as you will. I know I saw that a friend of mine,
just
like they did a soft open to work out kinks, and a friend of mine did it over the weekend. And I haven't talked to her to see how it went, but
11,000 inner tubes.
Yeah, well,
Did she do the portage too?
I don't know.
Oh,
you know, we used to play at Graco Field when we were in grade school. And, you know, right along the river there, it's really, really rough river. I mean, it's not for amateurs, you know. I mean, I could see, kayakers, but, you know, if you can just go rent them by just putting your credit card in like you rent a bike,
yeah.
I don't, boy.
It's operated by it's a partnership of the National Park Service, REI, Park Board, Mississippi
Hope they got
WMO,
insurance.
Current Design Kayaks,
Wow.
like some big name folks that have good attorneys.
Well, thanks for the update.
Yeah.
I'm in for both of you, and the meeting is adjourned.